dark side.
Welcome back. I'm Protector Cross, and today I've taken to rewriting Episode 7 of Star Wars. Now, love it or hate it, Star Wars The Force Awakens exists. Sure, it is just another rehash of Episode 1 and Episode 4, but it is still very much Star Wars. Though, we're going to look at how I would have rewritten this entire movie, the plot of The Force Awakens, to create a more unique Star Wars story, and one which, in my opinion, would have been a better start for a better sequel trilogy. Now again, I am Protector Cross, and today we will be fixing Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Note, I would like you to understand this is more of a narrative summary of how I would have basically done Episode 7 over what we got. It's not a movie script, and it's not gonna be like 100 pages. So hopefully this video will not be like 1 hour long. Part 1. The Force Awakens. Picture this. There's a small, unnamed city located on the planet of Naboo's surface. It's nighttime. Very little activity is happening at all tonight. Yet, we notice a small home in the center of this city. This peaceful village, basically, has cracks forming on the outer walls. The next thing you know, we're in a strange area. We see a young girl is running down a strange corridor. Dark mist is rising just above her ankles. We hear the cackling of an evil figure, which spurs this young girl to run in fear further down the corridor. Occasionally, a hooded figure would appear cackling before vanishing into the dark mist. Yet back in reality, she's actually in her bed, hyperventilating and thrashing in her sleep. The objects in her room are levitating. Her father rushes into the doorway, freezing at the sight that he is beholden, and is soon accompanied by her mother. Yet with a scream of absolute terror, the room begins to distort as the young girl awakens in a fearful rage. The entire abode cracks further and begins to collapse into on itself and her parents. Objects that were levitating flew away from her. She sits there in shock until the cackling is heard once more, driving her, the only survivor, to run into the night, into the deep forests of Naboo. On a distant world, parallel to the events happening on Naboo, Luke Skywalker is seen meditating. Yet, he's abruptly awoken with a vision that is forced into his mind of a young girl using the Force in such a manner that has sent out a ripple throughout the Force itself. He quickly packs up his gear, finds his ship, and then sooner than later he arrives on Naboo, where he begins his search for this young girl. He speaks with the others who live there, who are also very eager to help the Civil War hero and Jedi Master. Within a full day, Luke had finally tracked the girl deep into the forested areas of Naboo. She attempts to flee, though Luke is far too fast, and he comforts her. He explains that he felt her outburst, and he understands what happened was an accident. He understands what it is to lose those around you he loves. He entertains her with some parlor tricks, using the Force until she has finally calmed down. Luke asks her name, which she simply replies with, "I'm Rey." After a bit, Luke explains he really understands her pain and promises he can help her overcome it, and chooses to explain he had students a while back, though one had become corrupted due to his own failing and destroyed the school from the inside. He wishes to rebuild the school and also redeem that student in hopes that she will help him rebuild his school as his first new student. Rey, of course, will end up agreeing to this and leaves with Luke. Part 2. The Revelation of the First Order. Years later, on the planet Dakar, a temperate jungle planet and home to the third largest New Republic army base, ace pilot Poe Dameron and his Black Squadron are performing training exercises on the far side of the planet. Yet, unknown to everyone, the First Order's newly designed stealth Star Destroyers have begun to arrive overhead. Shortly after, bombardments slam into key parts of the base, and as landing vessels full of stormtroopers make their way towards the base, Kylo Ren is seen for the first time, riding down with the troopers himself. Within moments, an intense battle begins to ensue, with the New Republic army on a strict defensive, which was quickly falling to the surprise attack. Kylo Ren bravely slashes down several enemy soldiers, blocking bolts with his crimson saber and the Force itself, moving confidently with his troopers behind him. Yet, one is seen hyperventilating and panicking under the intense battle situation. He can't bring himself to fire unless fired at, and he takes a hit in the shoulder, which knocks him back. Medic troopers rush over to him and assist him by bringing him back to the transports. Black Squadron, having gotten a distress call, have been pushing their X-Wings to the maximum to get there in time. They begin giving air support and dispatching several of the trooper squadrons on the ground before TIE fighters come screaming down at them. Poe is seen in the intense dogfight as he expertly weaves around and dispatches several of these TIE fighters. Yet, they begin annihilating his team, which show not to be as good as he was. Kylo Ren, on the inside, is seen cutting down his opposition with little to no real opposition. His troopers overwhelm anyone, and those who attempt to get past them are quickly dispatched by Kylo himself. Here, we see Kylo and his troops are led into the tight corridor where the New Republic soldiers activate blast doors to halt his progress. Here, a nice callback happens where Kylo cuts open the blast door, allowing his troops to flood in and take out their opposition. Soon, he's in the command room. His troopers secure the location. With victory in mind, Kylo is surprised to see a lone X-Wing continuing its onslaught against the TIE fighters and barely wounded. Using the Force, he freezes the ship, freezes it in midair, and he begins to rip it down to the ground, causing it to crash into the base itself. Troopers remove survivors as prisoners of war, while Kylo approaches the pilot, sensing him to be alive still somehow. He personally secures him and brings him on board his Star Destroyer. Kylo then meets with General Hux, his personal friend and rival in tactics, where they discuss the operation's success and how the information they secured will surely lead to their next victory as well. Yet, unknown to them, a new factor has just entered into the equation. FN-2187, the wounded trooper who had combat troubles earlier, overhears from the medics that he will likely be executed for not participating to the standards of a trooper. Fearful, yet he waits, where they mention that they have captured the ace pilot and leader of the famous Black Squadron and have been tasked with preparing him for torture. FN-2187 slinks out of his bed, dons his trooper gear once more. His mind races with anxiety as he quickly makes his way towards the prisoner section, where he finally walks into the cell of Poe Dameron, who is laying about very lazily. Yet Poe isn't surprised when a trooper walks in. However, he does attempt to jump him. Just for FN to panic, with his training kicking in, he quickly slams Poe back away from him. He then hurriedly explains he needs a pilot to escape. Poe is confused but realizes it's also his chance to escape as well and warn the New Republic, though on one condition. FN-2187 must free the rest of the POWs. FN takes some convincing, mostly realizing they'd be perfect distractions for them to escape. Together, they free the POWs, who unanimously agree they won't be leaving, and Poe is tasked with warning the New Republic that the First Order does exist, and is more than a threat as they had hypothesized. FN and Poe conduct a more epic escape, where they barely make it with a varying amount of firefights happening. Luckily though, a TIE fighter has not been latched in. Poe and FN-2187 jump in and jettison off into space and back towards Dakar. Due to TIE fighters and TIE interceptors firing at them, they're hit and they end up crash landing on the planet's surface. Poe is wounded and FN helps him. Here Poe names him Finn as they arrive, as he doesn't like to call someone a number. At the hidden aerial base where several newer X-Wing models had been in development, there are two pilots over a pilot and a droid combination. Poe pilots while Finn is tasked with keeping any TIE fighters off their back, acting as the back gunner. Together they return to space, where they have a breakout battle with various TIE fighters, various TIE interceptors, and finally he hits the hyperspace aimed at the nearest New Republic Army base to Dakar, and warns them and to receive better transport. Part 3. Fate converges. Luke is seen training a now much older Rey in the usage of her blue lightsaber. Luke is lecturing her as they fight on relying more on the Force than her eyes when fighting. Rey obeys. She begins to calmly overpower Luke with her eyes closed, though this is just a farce as Luke masterfully steps back and knocks her down hard. As he helps her up, he says that she needs to fight without fighting. She needs to let things be and react to the unseen in unexpected ways, so long as she is doing it through the Force. Confused, he sees this and tells her that she should go meditate. As Rey is meditating, though, she receives a vision. She sees a figure clad in black wielding a red lightsaber. He approaches a woman who wields a blue lightsaber. He begins to fight, quickly overcoming the woman, who is afraid, her fear palpable, and kills her. She sees a blaster bolt shoot out, wounding the figure in black, hitting him in the side. He turns, and she awakens from her vision. Luke, who sat nearby rebuilding his own lightsaber, senses the panic she has and asks if she had a vision, which would be her first vision. Rey recounts the vision to him, and she explains the events, and notices shock on Luke's face. He explains his sister is technically a Jedi herself, and is the only woman he knows in possession of a blue lightsaber other than his Padawan Rey. He speculates his student was the dark figure who dispatched her. Luke gathers their things and orders she be ready as the time has finally come. He will go to his sister's side and attempt to subvert this prophecy and save his fallen disciple. Together, they make their way to Luke's hut as R2-D2 rolls out and greets them happily. Luke pats his old friend, informing him they'll be taking a trip now to see Leia. The droid begins to beep very happily. Poe and Finn, however, arrive at Coruscant, where they are led by the High Guards to Leia herself. Poe explains the situation, which Leia reveals she knows from the base as they had arrived at a confused state. Poe and Finn ask why did they bother coming here if she already knew, when they could just be on the front line fighting. But Finn is of course like, I don't want to be here, I wouldn't be on the front line. Leia explains that she has a special mission for the two of those, one only the best pilot they had could complete. They walk together, Finn confused, wanting to know what his part in this plan is, before the First Order ends up coming here after him. Yet, deep in space, much later, we see a larger freighter floating, still with its bay open. We then see in an X-Wing, Poe and Finn land their wing in and are greeted by armed guards. Poe announces he's searching for General Solo. The guards all laugh at him, stating the only Solo they know is the old drunk who stops in here rarely and his overgrown butt of a Wookiee. They let them in, directing them to the bar where they uncover Solo passed out drunk with Chewie trying to wake him up, shaking him very violently. They put the Wookiee on guard, though Solo awakens and attempts to duck them instantly, but falls over drunk. They explain to Chewie why they're there, and Chewie lets out that Chewbacca growl, grabs up Han Solo, and throws him over his back. Together, they lead them back to the ship, the Millennium Falcon. Han Solo awakens later on, with Finn, and he's on board the Millennium Falcon. Finn begins to explain to him that they're heading to Hosnian Prime. Solo attempts to take control, but realizes he still can't move his legs yet or his arms. He comments on how much he hates that special blend so damn much. Finn tells him his wife requested him, specifically in exchange so that Finn would get a full pardon and could leave, and he's not going to allow Han Solo to mess that up for him. After a while, we see Solo is resigned to his fate and is now bonding with Finn. They begin to play holo chess, while Chewie by himself pilots the Falcon. Luke and Rey, however, arrive on Hosnian Prime and are being escorted towards the capital with R2-D2 in tow, yet following behind them, and we also have the glorious golden droid himself, C-3PO. And of course, in the same fashion as prior movies, he is complaining about how dangerous this whole event is and how much of a disaster it is. Rey, having heard of the attack on Dakar, expresses she and Luke should be on the front lines and fighting back. Luke here mentions that how Jedi once got too involved with the government and lost their way. It's exactly how the Clone Wars led to the fall of the Jedi, and how easily society was swayed against them under the Empire. She mentions how he fought in the Galactic Civil War and was a hero. He explains he did, and that was not the place of a Jedi, but a rebel warrior. He continues stating, a Jedi shouldn't fight for themselves or others unless it is in the defense of themselves or others, and the order of the past tended to be what it needed to be at that time. And while it did lead to a great republic, it also led to the destruction of the republic and the beginning of an empire, along with the downfall of the Jedi. Rey asks, then why did they come here? Luke falls silent, before saying to Rey, to help defend the New Republic, not fight for it. Finally, they enter into the main chamber of Prime Minister Organa. They see inside Han Solo, Chewie, Poe Dameron, Leia Solo, and a very nervous Finn, complaining that he should have just left, but no, he was talked in and decided to stay and give intel instead of leaving with his pardon. Poe goes to calm him when Han and Leia spot Luke. Leia stands and announces their introduction as the Grand Jedi Master, Skywalker, and Luke finishes her sentence with, my Padawan, Rey. Han is shocked and stands. Didn't you learn anything from Ben? Leia counters that Ben made his own decisions and it isn't Luke's fault. Han goes to walk by Luke before he stops and looks at him. I'm sorry. I just can't. You're my friend, my brother, but I can't do this anymore. Chewie protests and Han states that he can stay and fight, but he'll be on the Falcon, ready to rescue their sorry asses. Luke motions for everyone to let him leave. Rey and he are briefed with what the First Order seemingly has planned, a large-scale invasion of Hosnian Prime, as it is the new planned location of the New Republic's capital, and decided by vote at that. Crazy democracy. The city isn't capable of an orbital defense and can only muster a defense against aerial and land-based threats. Much later, various New Republic Army soldiers line the streets of the evacuated city as Star Destroyers begin to enter into the atmosphere. Cannons fire off from the ground towards the Star Destroyers as TIE fighters scream overhead. They launch barrages when X-Wings fly overhead combating them. Poe enters into a dangerous battle himself, flying very keenly. His backup pilot, a droid named BB-8, expertly conducts the calculations and ensuring their survivability. Yet, troopers and tanks launch a hard attack on the city itself, as the defenders try a valiant battle but are quickly overpowered in advanced shields and weapons. Soon, the troops begin to fall back to the main courtyard of the NRA on the planet as an evacuation ship has begun to become prepared to escape in case of a failed defense. There, we see Kylo Ren landing his personal ship on the battlefield, and personally leads his personal troops up the steps, slaughtering his opposition, as if they were mere butter to his heated knife. And, just as his grandfather once had done at the Jedi Temple, he begins to ascend towards where his targets are. As Kylo and his men cut down the remaining soldiers on the stairs, they continue to advance towards the large barred wooden doors. His troops take up positions, placing blast charges on the door, yet Kylo feels a disturbance. He feels something is gathering behind the door, and quickly braces himself both physically and within the Force. The large wooden doors fly out as massive force blast sends them and the troops flying. The charges they had that were just recently activated land into a group of troops detonating, sending bodies flying. Kylo looks into the doorway. He sees Luke and Rey with their respective green and blue sabers alight. Kylo stands, ordering that the Jedi are his and his alone, and then they quickly begin to have an epic battle. Kylo Ren on the defensive, being pushed down the stairs, though as the fight rages on and Kylo is pushed to his knees by both Luke and Rey, he rages out and force pushes Rey all the way back up the stairs and into the courtroom as the doors are left way off their hinges. Leia runs to her aid, but she's unconscious. She orders Chewie to get her back to the evacuation ship while she goes to help Luke. Outside and in combat, Luke, now pushed onto a heavy defensive, is slammed with the Force and his lightsaber ripped from his very hands. Kylo goes for a killing blow as Luke pleads with his once disciple to come back with him. It's okay. Yet, all of a sudden, Kylo Ren is pulled backwards to the stairs, causing him to drop Luke's saber for balancing reasons. He looks up as the Falcon is seen flying overhead, bombarding the troops which have formed a watching perimeter. They erupt into a gunfight, firing at the ship. Kylo then hears a saber ignite. He turns and sees his mother, Leia. He then engages in battle with her as she attempts to talk to her son mid-combat. "Please, listen to him, come back to us," she says. He pushes her back with much like Rey's vision. Luke sees this and screams out as Kylo goes in for a cold and killing blow of his mother, her body pinned against the stairs, his lightsaber raised to deal the blow as it was described to him in Rey's vision. Yet, a blaster shot slams into the side of Kylo, breaking what was set to happen, stunning him. He turns to see Han Solo, running towards them, firing at him with his blaster. He begins to deflect the barrages as more New Republic Army troops hit the streets, pushing a last-ditch effort against the First Order. Leia gets up, igniting her lightsaber once more. When the Falcon flies overhead, firing again and destroying several TIE fighters, we see that Chewie, Rey, and Finn are on board, working together to help even the odds. Soon, proton torpedoes slam into the ground behind Kylo, knocking him towards Han Solo and into the ground. Poe screams victory as he flies overhead, but is quickly shot down by a TIE fighter and crashes into a nearby river. Leia, who had braced upon seeing the torpedo, stands up. She sees Han Solo is holding Kylo Ren and goes to rush over to them. When a trooper opens fire, cutting her off, she's forced back onto a defensive, deflecting bolts as hard as she can. Han Solo, however, removes his son's mask, and his son looks up at him, waking up. "Father, what happened?" Han Solo says, "It'll be alright. He won't let him go this time." As Kylo says, I don't have it in me, Father. I'm weak. Please help me. Help me." Han looks to him. "I'll do anything you need to help, son. Please, just come back to us. I'll help you." Kylo smiles. "Thank you, Father. Please." He's pulled Luke's green saber into his free hand. Han Solo looks over in shock as the lightsaber blade ignites, tearing through Han Solo's chest. "Then die, Father." Kylo pushes up and stands up as his father falls to his knees. He looks at him pleadingly. "No." As Kylo pulls over his own saber and, like Anakin before him, uses them to scissor Han's head from his body. Luke and Leia cry out, "No!" and reach out in the Force to push Kylo, throwing him into the nearby building, though they become overwhelmed again as the troopers begin to open fire. Leia begrudgingly orders a retreat as the Falcon takes hits, leading to let Luke and Leia in. Chewie lands just barely, landing perfectly. He sees that Han's death. He screams out in pain, he roars out in pain, and begins firing blindly into the building, igniting some nearby armaments inside, causing an explosion. Leia pulls him in and tries to calm the enraged Wookiee, as they quickly fly off with TIE fighters attempting to intercept them all. In the distance, the troop evacuation ships shoot off, avoiding Star Destroyer fire. Part 4. The finale. Everyone mourns the death of the great Han Solo. They arrive on Coruscant, and Leia resumes the operation of Prime Minister during and using the death of her late husband, the fall of Dakar, and the destruction of the new capital in Hosnian Prime to rally even more soldiers in support to protect their newly formed democracy. Luke announces that he will train Rey further, stating to her and Leia he will be taking Rey to Dagobah, so that she may experience something only she can comprehend. Finn is appointed a war hero in the defense of Hosnian Prime, as in the background he helped with the evacuation and even did his fair share of fighting. States he is no hero though, yet he will be returning to Hosnian Prime to rescue his friend Poe Dameron, who he's forged a real bond with. He feels he must still be alive, and he's going to bring him back alive. Leia asks the grieving Chewie if he will take him, and hopefully recover the body of Han Solo for a proper pyre burial. Chewie complainingly agrees, and they head out on their mission after a night's rest. Leia is left alone. On her desk is her lightsaber. She sits in her chair and sobs over her great loss. Kylo Ren, however, is seen presenting the lightsaber of Luke Skywalker to a mysterious figure, one which cackles maniacally and says, "Good, good. You've served me well, young Solo. Now leave behind your past as Ben Solo and Kylo Ren, and rise as Darth Patridge, my apprentice." The scene begins to fade into darkness as Darth Patridge rises. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. Well, this summary of how I would have handled the core concepts of the story, along with how I kind of would have set up the grand scheme of things to lead into other films. Of course, writing a full-fledged script wasn't the intention of this video. This was just to show everyone how I think I would have handled a better Episode 7. Now, of course, this could lead to a new trilogy and whatnot, but if you really like this video and you want to see my take on Episode 8 and Episode 9, I need you to comment below. Comment that you want Episode 8 and 9 and I will do it. Share this video with your friends, like it, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Now, again, I know there's a lot of fire in the Star Wars community. Some say Disney's too woke and all this other stuff, and really, I think it's just bad storytelling. It's all bad storytelling and pandering. And I think good writing should be at the core of the series. Now, this is Protector Cross, and I'm signing off. May the Force be with you.